Good morning from St. Bart's in Midtown Manhattan. I'm Peter Thompson, the Associate Rector for Formation and Liturgy here, and it is my joy to welcome you to the forum where each week we explore important issues at the intersection of faith and the modern world. This morning, we are going to have a difficult but needed conversation about the conflict in Israel and Palestine, and we're joined by Rami El-Hanan, who is a father who lost his daughter in the conflict. Rami is a member of the organization called the Parents Circle Families Forum, which is a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization composed of over 600 families who have lost at least one member in the conflict. And we may be joined by another member of the Parents Circle, George Saadeh, later on in this conversation. For more information about the Parents Circle, you can visit theparentscircle.org. Rami, it is such an honor to have you with us this morning. Thank you for taking the time to be here. We're on mute, Rami, if you wouldn't mind unmuting.
The honor and pleasure is mine.
We are so grateful that you have taken the time to be with us. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, I will try to be as short as possible because we have a very limited amount of minutes. I'm talking on behalf of my brother, George Saadeh, who lives in Bethlehem. And I'm not sure if he will be able to join us. So I'll try to cover us both. For me, George is a light in the dark. I look up to him. I admire him. He used to be the vice mayor of Bethlehem. He lost his 12 years old daughter, Christine, at the beginning of the second Intifada in Bethlehem. She was shot by an Israeli commando ambush who was mistaken to take the family car as a terrorist car. And the rest is history. For me, as I said, George is a light in the dark. I admire him, I look up to him, and I take a lot of strength out of him and my other Israeli and Palestinian partners, bereaved families, members of this unique organization of ours, which is known by the name of the Parents Circle. The Israeli-Palestinian Bereaved Families for Peace, which is probably the only organization on earth that does not seek new members. My name is Rami El-Hanan. I'm 72 years old, graphic designer, living in Jerusalem. I was born in Jerusalem, 7th generation. My mother was born in the old city of Jerusalem, an ultra-Orthodox Jewish family. My father came to the country in 1946 after spending 1 year in Auschwitz. He was very badly wounded in the 48 war. She was the nurse that took care of him, and this is the reason why I'm able to speak to you right now. I am a Jew, I'm an Israeli, and before anything else, I am a human being. The story I will tell you now starts and also ends on one particular day of the Jewish calendar, which is known by the name of Yom Kippur. You know, Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year for the Jews. This is the day where you ask forgiveness for your sins. On this very day, 47 years ago, I was a very young soldier fighting this horrible October 73 war. We have started it with a company of 11 tanks. We finished it with only 3. I've lost over there in the desert of Sinai and across the Suez Canal, some of my very best friends. I came out of it a very angry and bitter and disappointed young man with one determination: to detach myself from any kind of commitment, to mind my own business. I got out of the army. I went to Bezalel Art School to become a graphic designer. I got married and I had 4 kids. And 37 years ago, on the very eve of this Yom Kippur day, my daughter was born in Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem. Her name was Smadar. The name Smadar is taken from the Bible, the Song of Solomon. It means the grape of vine, which was the opening of the flower. She was really sparkling and vivid, joyful little girl. She was an excellent student. She was very beautiful. She played the piano. She was a swimmer. She was a dancer. She was amazing. Everybody used to call her the princess. And we lived a very good life in our house in Jerusalem, almost completely detached from the outside world. My three boys and this princess, my wife, which is a professor for education in the Hebrew University. In many ways, you could say that we put ourselves inside a big bubble, completely detached from the outside world, minding our own business. I was doing graphic design for the right wing, for the left wing, whoever paid me. And life was relatively beautiful. And this went on until about 23 years ago. On the 4th of September 1997, just a few days before Yom Kippur, this bubble of ours was blown up to millions of pieces. Two Palestinian suicide bombers blew themselves up in the center of Jerusalem, killing 5 people that day, including 3 little girls. One of these girls was my 14 years old Smadar. It was a Thursday afternoon and the beginning of a very long and a very cold night, which continues until today. At first, when you hear about the explosion, you keep hoping that maybe this time this finger will not turn towards you. Then gradually you find yourself running in the streets, trying to find her. She completely vanished. Then eventually, at the end, you find yourself in the morgue, and this finger is stuck right between your eyes, and you see this sight which you will never ever be able to forget for the rest of your life. You come back home, the house is filled with thousands and thousands of people coming to pay respect, to offer condolences. These are the 7 mourning days of the Jewish people. It's called Shiva. You are kind of enveloped by these thousands and thousands of people in a very clever, traditional way that is designed to ease your passage to the new kind of life which expects you. On the 8th day, they all go home, back to their normal businesses. Suddenly you are left alone. You need to wake up. You need to face yourself, and you need to make a decision. What are you going to do now with this new unbearable burden on your shoulders? What are you going to do with this anger that eats you alive from within? There are only 2 ways to choose from. The first one is obvious. When someone kills your 14 years old little girl, you are so angry and you want to get even. This is natural, this is human, this is the way most people choose, the way of revenge and retaliation, this way that creates this endless cycle of violence which never stops. But then after a while, you start asking yourself questions. You know, we're human beings. We're not animals. We got a head on our shoulders. We can use it. And you ask yourself, will killing anyone will bring her back? Will causing pain to someone will ease this unbearable pain? Well, the answer is certainly not. So in a very graduate and complicated process, you come to the other option, which is much more difficult, trying to understand what happened here. Why did it happen? How could such a horrible thing take place? What can cause someone to be that angry, that mad, that desperate, that hopeless, that he is willing to blow himself up with a 14 years old little girl? Do you have some kind of connection or responsibility yourself? And then the most important question of them all, what can you do personally in order to prevent this unbearable pain from other people, from other families? Well, foolishly enough, at the beginning, I thought that I could go on with my life, pretending as if nothing had happened, try to lead a normal life, but nothing was normal anymore. And I was not the same person anymore. About a year later, I met a big man who changed my life completely. His name was Yitzhak Frankenthal. He was a religious person, you know, with a big kippah on his head. You know how we tend to put people into drawers and we stigmatize people and we judge people by the way they dress. And I was certain that he's a fascist and a right-winger, and he eats Arabs for breakfast. I prepared myself to fight him. We started talking. He told me about his son, Arik, a soldier who was kidnapped and murdered by the Hamas in 1994, and about this organization that he created of people who lost their loved ones and still wanted peace and searched for peace and fought for peace. And he invited me over to watch a meeting of this group of crazy people. And I reluctantly and out of curiosity said, okay. And I went to see. It was 22 years ago. I was standing aside, very detached and reluctant and cynical, as I always am. And I was looking at those people coming down from the buses, which for me, as an Israeli patriot, were always living legends. I used to look up to them. I used to admire them. I never ever thought that one day I will be one of them, part of this group of people that I used to read in the newspapers about them. But then I saw something which was completely new to me, to my eyes, to my mind, and to my soul. I was standing there watching the Palestinian bereaved families coming down from the buses, walking towards me, shaking my hand for peace, hugging me, crying with me. And I was so deeply touched and so deeply moved. You see, I was 47 years old at the time. Until today, I'm ashamed to admit it was the first time ever in my life I have met Palestinians as human beings, not as workers in the streets, not as terrorists, and not as transparent people, as human beings who carry the same burden that I carry, who suffer exactly like I suffer. And I was so deeply shocked and moved. I remember seeing this old Arab lady coming down from the bus with this long black traditional Palestinian dress, and she had a picture of a 6-year-old kid on her chest, exactly like my wife, carry the name of our daughter, Smadari, on hers. I'm not a religious person, I'm afraid to admit, especially in this neighborhood, and I have no way of explaining what happened to me back then, 22 years ago. All I can tell you is from that moment on, until today, I devote my life to go everywhere possible, to talk to anyone possible, in any language possible, to any kind of people possible, people who want to listen and people who will not listen, to convey this very basic and very simple message which says we are not doomed. This is not our destiny to keep on killing each other in this holy land of ours forever. It's not written anywhere. We can change it. And we can break once and for all this endless cycle of violence and revenge and retaliation. And the only way to do it is simply by talking to one another, because it will not stop unless we talk. I believe deeply that one can teach himself how to listen. I believe that once you are able to listen to the pain of the other, you can expect the other to listen to your pain. And then, only then, together, start this very long journey towards reconciliation, maybe some kind of peace in the end. This is a very long and bumpy road, no shortcuts. But this is the only way possible, because the other way leads to nowhere. And the price of the other way is really horrible. Believe me, I know what I'm saying. So this is what we do in the Parent Circle, my brother George and the 600 families members of these unique organizations. We bang our heads against this very high wall of hatred and fear that divide our two nations today. And we put cracks in it, crack after crack. And through these cracks, a little light comes in, and a little light can drive away a lot of darkness until we will put those walls down, because the alternative is impossible. And we have an enormous ally on our side, which is the power of our pain. And you should know that the power of pain is tremendous. It's enormous. It's very much similar to the nuclear energy. And you can use this energy in order to bring darkness and destruction and death to people. And you can use this enormous energy in order to bring light, and warmth, and hope. So we go around the country, we go actually around the world, we go from high school to high school. We talk to Israeli kids and we talk to Palestinian kids. We tell them our story, and we tell them that our blood is exactly the same color, that our pain is exactly the same pain, and our tears are just as bitter. And if we, who have every reason on earth to hate each other and to want to kill each other, if we can call each other brother, anyone can, anyone should. Thank you for listening. I understand now that George will not join us for some reason. We can always blame the occupation. But I will do my best to tell his story and to represent him not only as a member of the parent circle, but also as real family, real brother. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Rami, for sharing that incredibly powerful story. You talked about meeting with Palestinians and for the first time seeing them as human beings. I wonder if you could talk about how your mind was changed at all after those encounters.
I was a subject of the Israeli Zionist education. I was being hidden from the other side, deliberately and viciously. And ever since 22 years ago until today, I started the journey towards the other side, towards learning the other side, towards understanding the other side, and towards redefining myself as a Jew, as an Israeli, and as a human being. And I look at myself as victim of this policy of hiding the other side, of this policy of building walls between people, of this policy who use hatred and victimhood mentality in order to go on living life which is unbearable.
Can you talk about what you want Americans to know about what is happening in your part of the world?
Oh yeah, usually I leave it to the end. Usually people ask, what can we do? And the answer is very sharp. You can do a lot. You know, I'm a son of a Holocaust survivor. My late father was an Auschwitz graduate. And 75 years ago, while they took my grandparents to the ovens back in Europe, the free and civilized world stood aside, never lifting one finger. And today, so many years later, while these two crazy nations of ours are massacring each other without any mercy, while this genocide is being taken place in Syria and people are drowning in the Mediterranean like flies, and atrocities actually wherever you look. And the free and civilized world is still standing aside, doing nothing, which is really horrible, which is a crime. Because standing aside while watching crime being committed is also a crime. Now we do not ask you, and we don't want you to be pro-Israeli or to be pro-Palestine. This will not help us. We demand of you to be pro-peace, to be against injustice and against this basic situation in which one people is dominating another for so many years. This is wrong. And I will tell you as a Jew, and I am a Jew with the utmost respect to my people, to my history, to my tradition, and I will tell you that ruling and oppressing and humiliating so many people for so many years without any democratic right is not Jewish, period. And being against it is not anti-Semitism. If you get into an argument, you can quote me.
If you have questions for Rami, I invite you to send them in. You can use the live chat function on YouTube, the comments function on Facebook, or you can email me, pthompson@stbarts.org. That's pthompson@stbarts.org. If you're in our in-person audience, you can also write a question and hand it to one of my colleagues. and I will be able to see it then. While we're waiting for those questions, Rami, I wonder if you can talk about what this experience has been like for you among your fellow Israeli citizens. What is your dialogue with your own people like?
Well, we are very much Israelis and Palestinians alike, like people who are trying to draw water from the ocean with a little spoonful of little holes. We enjoy the utmost respect possible from our audience because we paid the price. We have a lot of respect. This enables us to open our mouths and to sound words like you just heard. And then it depends on the audience. Some people, it's unbearable for them to listen to it. Some people are full of anger and emotions. You have to understand, as I told you earlier, that we are all victims of our educational system. And once you hear a voice like ours, it comes against your very being. And when you are brainwashed, it's very, very difficult for you to accept this. And then we face sometimes a lot of anger, sometimes a lot of respect. Someone told me in an Israeli high school that it's a pity I wasn't blown with my daughter. In a Palestinian school, the headmaster told the kids not to listen to me because they weakened their will to fight for freedom. But I think the vast majority reaction is positive. I mean, no one can listen to us and remain the same. And for me, even if in the end of the class, there will be only one kid, Israeli or Palestinian, who nods his head like this with acceptance to this message, it's a miracle in so many ways. I say one drop of blood. And I'm sure we make a difference. I'm sure that me and George and Bassam and my other partners from the Palestinian side, when we tell our story, we always find a soft spot to land on.
Someone asks how we can support the Parents Circle.
In any way possible. I mean, first of all, get into our website, which is theparentcircle.org. We have a lot of activities in the United States. In fact, we are going to be there in the beginning of October, me and my brother, Bassam Aramin, for a lecture tour. You can get into the Friends of the Parent Circle website and in order to find out what activities we do. You can donate, of course, you can read our stories, very many stories like ours, and you can read about the activities of the Parent Circle, which is the most important thing. We hold a variety of activities that overall are designed to put down the wall between us. It can be a narrative project which bring together Israelis and Palestinians which are not bereaved to listen to the narrative of each other. They go to about 10 or 15 meetings with each other and they learn how to listen. You don't have to accept or agree, but you have to be able to listen. At the end of it, friendships are created, groups who work together are created, solidarity activity groups are created. And until today, we have more than 1,200 alumni of these groups, which listened to the Parent Circle, listened to the stories of the Parent Circle, and decided to go on by themselves. We have just in these days a summer camp for our kids, which will take place in several places. And again, if you look at our website, you'll see it's an amazing project. We have a very strong women group who does a lot of activities in Israel and in Palestine. And we have the most important thing that we do is the dialogue meetings in high schools, which take place hundreds and hundreds of dialogue meetings in Israel and in Palestine, which is much more complicated. Again, all of this in order to put the crack in the wall.
Someone asks what prospects you see for a change in Israeli policy towards Palestinians and the prospect for a Palestinian state.
Well, I'm very pessimistic in the short run, and I'm extremely optimistic in the long run. In the short run, we are facing a horrible situation. There is a new government in Israel, which symbolizes no change because it is mostly a right-wing government. So it's a freeze. I mean, you can do anything, not to the right, not to the left. And the only good thing that they did is get rid of Mr. Netanyahu, which was really a disaster for everyone. But the new government, under the new government, with its left side component, atrocities still taking place. Every day someone is killed. Every day some injustice is being taken, and the situation is not good. And as long as the situation is not good, people will be pushed to the corner. And as long as you oppress them and humiliate them, they will bite back, and basic things will not change. On the long run, my brother Bassam always said that the Israelis did not kill 6 million Palestinians, and the Palestinians did not kill 6 million Israelis. And there is an Israeli ambassador in Berlin, and there is a German ambassador in Tel Aviv.
Several folks have commented that there are racial and political divisions within the U.S. as well, as I'm sure you're aware, and a history of oppression and injustice. And I'm wondering what advice you can give us about facing our own divisions, our own need for reconciliation, need for justice, need for peace. What skills and techniques can we learn from you all?
Well, you have serious problems of your own. The fact that more than 70 million Americans voted for Trump in the last election is something which is very alarming. It shows the division in your society is so deep that you really have some real problems in understanding each other. And the only advice I can offer is listen carefully to those voices, manage your educational system, try to open your hearts, and know that there are not magic solutions. The only solution in America, in Brazil, in Poland and Hungary, and in Israel, is the ability to respect the other guy, the ability to respect him exactly as you want to be respected, no more and no less. And then all the rest are technicalities which can be solved by negotiation.
How do you respect the person you're listening to if you think that person is wrong?
Not by putting your finger in his eyes, not by proving him to be dummy and ignorant, not by humiliate him and insult him. I'm not naive. I know how difficult it is. I know when people get into an argument, they tend to lose the image, the human image of the next guy, and they want to win the argument, no matter what. Um, I don't have any illusions, and I don't pretend to have magic solutions. I know, for example, that I gave a lecture in a refugee camp in Palestine, Chizma refugee camp. And one kid was 16 years old, and he just got out of jail the same day. And he listened to me and he said to Bassam, my brother, that he does not believe that Rami is a Jew, because he never met Jew like Rami. And this is the bridge that we have to cross. We have to show our humanity to the other side. You have to show the ability to listen and respect, and you have to listen to the pain. And everyone has a pain, and your pain is the pain, the utmost pain. You are almost incapable of listening to other pains, and you have to teach yourself how to do it.
Someone asks when your mind started to change. Was it that invitation from the religious man who invited you to the group? Was that the first step? And what were the initial parts of that process like for you?
As you learn from my own private story, is that I was cynical. I was outsider. I was kind of an anarchist. After my experience in the October 73 war, I became completely detached from the rest of society. And I was doing graphic design for the left wing and the right wing, and I could care less. But deep down, I felt that something is very wrong. Deep down, I felt that something is basically ill and need to be corrected. So what happened to me was kind of a slap in the face, was kind of a blow in my head. But it took me 1 year to process it, until the breaking point of meeting the Palestinian bereaved families 22 years ago, make it focused and crystallized into one very sharp mission to prevent this pain from others. And ever since then, I said I'm in a journey all the time.
I know there was a novel written recently by Colin McCann, partially based on your experience. Can you talk about what it was like for your own life to be seen through a novelist's eyes?
Well, it's really exciting, unbelievable, especially the fact that Steven Spielberg is going to make a movie out of it. But when we met Colin McCann 6 years ago, it was the usual thing. We are quite famous, me and Bassam, my brother, and there were several documentaries that were made upon us. If you Google the names Rami Elchanan and Bassam Aramin, you will find that it was not new, this interest. What was new is the fact that we made this lecture in Bejala, our office in Bejala, and it was a group of Telos and RT4 that were presenting, and he burst into tears. In a way, he collapsed in a way that I never saw before, and we found ourselves comforting him, and hugging him and kissing him and trying to make him relax. And then he asked permission to write the story, and 4 years later, I read it in the airplane on my way to America. And it was like listening to myself being recorded. It sometimes sounds very peculiar and unnatural, but it's an amazing story. It's a masterpiece. I dived into it. I couldn't get it off my head. He built a picture from so many layers and so many events, and And the idea, the basic idea behind it, you know, it's 1,001 stories. Little stories sometimes of one line or several pages, which all combine to the story of Scheherazade from 1009 stories. And she told those stories in order to keep herself alive. And Callum says that me and Bassam are telling those stories 5, 4, 6 times a day in order to keep the girls alive. So the reaction to the fact that it came to be a bestseller by the New York Times and others, and the languages it was translated in, it's quite it's very nice.
You know, you say, Rami, that you're not a person of faith, but I hear a lot of hope in your message. What gives you that hope?
It's an ongoing struggle to keep being hopeful. We don't have the privilege of giving up. We don't have the privilege of raising up our hands and say, that's it. We owe it to our daughters. And I have always feel the feeling that Smadar is standing behind my back and pushing me forward and saying, go on, go and go. And again, you cannot imagine the feeling that when me and Bassam, or me and George, or any other member of the parent circle step into a high school class in Israel or in Palestine, they are not as polite and receptive as you are. It's very much like walking into the open mouth of an active volcano. There is a sea of blood between these two nations. There is a lot of anger. And they are all victims of what I told you about myself, victims of the educational system. These are two societies at war. They need to prepare the young generation to be able to sacrifice themselves when time comes. And the only way to do it is by hiding the other side and demonizing the other side to an extent that it will be no problem for a young Palestinian angry kid to blow himself up with 14 years old little girl, or like in the case of Bassam, for a young Israeli soldier to shoot a 10 years old girl in the back of her head. So this is what we're facing. And the feeling that we have when they come to us to shake our hands, to hug us, to keep on talking to us, to show curiosity to our message, it's something to be hopeful about.
How often do you run into opposition? Someone asks, how are you able to talk to Israelis and Palestinians without offending people?
Twice an hour. Yeah, it's very, very often. Many people do not understand what we do. Many people are very angry with us. But this is the logic of the activity. I mean, it is so understandable and acceptable. I mean, I can really listen and respect people who are offended by my activity, and I'm willing to explain, but I will not change.
What does peace look like in Israel and Palestine? What are you working towards?
As I said earlier, respect. I don't know what the political answer will be. 1 state, 2 states, 10,000 states. I don't think it's important. I think if we are talking in political terms, there is an agreement lying on the table waiting to be signed. Everybody knows exactly what should be done in order to finish this stupid war tomorrow morning. It means that one side, which are the Palestinian Arabs, are giving up 78% of the land, which they believe all of it is only theirs. And the other side, which are the Israeli Jews, are giving up 22% of the land, which is the cradle of their history. And this is the only agreement possible. And it will be signed in the end. It can take 1 year or 2 years or 8 years or 800 years. It took the Irish people 800 years to get to their agreement. Now, if you ask me personally, I really couldn't care less. A state, for me, is not something sacred. A state is not something to kill for or die for. A state is a tool, a technical tool. You pay your taxes, you get security, you get services you don't kill or die for. And you can have one state or two states or confederation or whatever you like, provided one word is essential. Without it, nothing will happen. And this word is respect. And as I said, you have to be able to respect the guy next to you exactly as you want to be respected. Otherwise, it will not work. And all the rest are technicalities. You can find ways. The main problem, the deepest problem, is what we call the victimhood mentality. I'm a Jew. I carry on my back 3,000 years of Jewish history of victimhood, not an invented victimhood, a real victimhood. It's under our blood, this fear. It will never go away. Not only that, we are the only ones who are allowed to be victims. No one else is allowed to be a victim. We send our kids to Auschwitz when they are 16 years old to learn how victimhood looks like. So they come back draped with the national flag and the slogan, never again. And the next year they are standing in a checkpoint as soldiers, and they have to make a decision where this 70 years old guy is a suicide bomber or just a grandfather, which is completely inhuman. And I'm saying, as a Jew, as a son of a Holocaust survivor, and as a victim, that I will not use my victimhood in order to victimize other people.
A final question as we end. Someone wonders about the role of religion. You said you're not a person of faith, but you are a Jew, and has religion exacerbated the conflict? Is religion to blame?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my partner George is a religious Christian with a very deep faith and conviction. My brother Bassam is a religious Muslim. And from the teaching I listened from them, their religion is a religion of peace, of love, of mercy, of compassion and vision. And I think religion is a tool for those who want to use religion in an ill way. And we must face them. And we know that we have religious people with the message, with the dignity, the honor, the vision to behave differently. The problematic thing about religious is against politics. Religions cannot compromise. You cannot ask a Jew to keep only 6 days and not keeping the Shabbat. You cannot ask a Muslim not to do Ramadan. You cannot ask a Christian, whatever. I mean, a religion can't, when you are working with God's word and God's command, and you have leaders that lead you in a certain way, then it can be catastrophic and very painful. We need to be very, very sensitive. And we need leaders like George, like Bassam, to show us the best way how to cope with religion.
Rami, it's been such an honor to have you with us today. Do you have any final words to share with us?
Don't stand aside. This is the final word. I get into the website of the Parent Circle and the American Friends of the Parent Circle to read more stories like ours, to read about our activities. And when you get to the end of it, there is a little button down below. It says donate. You can push it.
Thank you so much, Rami. It's been a real honor. Thank you all to watching. Thanks to Rob Radke, our parishioner, for facilitating this connection with the Parents Circle. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful Sunday, and we do invite you to join us for worship at 11 a.m. Take care.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rami.